Good afternoon, families. I'm Kevin Acuff, Elma School District Superintendent, and I am speaking to you today as part of our regular communications that we try to provide you every 2 weeks. And today we're going to talk about how decisions are made whether to bring students back for in-person learning. And I'd like to start that by showing you how you can find the metric that we use to determine the number of cases that we have in Grace Harbor County. So if you just go to Google and you type in Washington Risk Assessment Dashboard, that will take you to a link that looks like this. And if you click that and then scroll down to here, you will find the dashboard. And you'll see a map of the entire state, and you will see a number of key metrics. So here you can see the rate per 100,000 of newly diagnosed cases over the previous 2 weeks, and the value for that for the state is 71.2. If you want to look at local ELMA data, which is what we use to determine the amount of disease transmission in our community, you go over to the drop down, select a county, select Grace Harbor County, and then you will get the new information. Now, the best way to look at this is to click on this tab here that says COVID-19 disease activity. And if you click right there, up will pop this graph. And this graph is what determines the current case rate. And it includes some other information that's helpful in knowing what helps determine that case rate. So the first thing you're going to see this number here, which is 169.9, which you can see is considerably higher than Washington State. But actually that's an old piece of data because they only put up the confirmed cases with this number. And if you go across and you slide on this line, you will see that you will find information on different dates. Here we are on August 11th. The county was at 48.5 cases per 100,000. And then on August 28th, we were at 132. And then if you go to the last blue dot here, you'll see that September 12th is the last date, and it matches up to the number that's on the top left part of this screen at 169.9. But the number we actually use is the most current one, which is on a gray line here, and you can see that it shows 161.8 cases per 100,000. And you can see actually just a few days ago we were up at a much higher number on 217.1 on September 21st. So we take this number and we use what is known as the Washington State decision tree to determine what that means, what those numbers mean. And as you look at this here, you will see that if you start down at the low, if you have less than 25 cases per 100,000 in the last 14 days, you're below 25. Moderate means that you're between 25 and 75, and high means that you have more than 75 cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days. So obviously, Grace Harbor County is in the high category with 161 cases per 100,000 currently. And you can see that the decision tree actually makes recommendations about the level of in-person learning that you have. And you see they strongly recommend distance learning with the option for limited in-person learning in small groups or cohorts of students for the highest need students, such as students with disabilities, students living homeless, and those farthest from educational justice and our younger learners. So that is exactly who is in school right now. And in order for us to move to having more students in school, we would want this line to reach a peak and be on the downward swing, and do so not just for a day or two, as you see here, but do so over a period of several weeks. And if we go to a different county that's very near us, Thurston County, I think you'll see what I'm talking about with regard to the cases over time. So here's Thurston County's line, and you can see that their highest number was actually on July 19th. They were at 65.8 cases per 100,000. And then they've been on a pretty steady decline with a couple of spikes here down to their current number, which if I go over again all the way to the right on the gray is 21.3 cases per 100,000 as of September 23rd, the same as Grays Harbor County. But the important thing that I wanted you to see is that there's a general declining line that happened beginning on about August 9th. So that is exactly the same kind of thing that we're looking for in order to consider bringing more students back to school. Again, if we go back to the Grays Harbor County, you would see that if you follow the line, it actually is still in a jagged, at least mostly up direction. And we would need to see perhaps as much as 14 days more data before we would be able to determine what the most recent trend is. And we would also need to be moving much closer to the line of 75, which takes us down to the moderate level. The other places that we gather information are from the Grays Harbor County Health Department website, and they have a map that's updated once a week showing you the total number of cases by zip code. And you can see that in the most recent map that Elma is at 44 cases. And that means that since last week, there's actually been 2 new cases in our zip code, because last week the number was 42. Even though we would like to use that number to determine if we're coming back to school, our guidance tells us that we need to use the entire county to make a determination about whether we should hold in-person school. Then the last piece of information that we use is this CDC indicators and thresholds for risk of introduction and transmission of COVID in schools. And you can see, here's your numbers, less than 5 per 100,000. Again, it's the same measurement that was used for Washington State. So the number of new cases per 100,000 within the last 14 days. And the lowest risk is less than 5. Lower is 5 to 20. Moderate risk is 20 to 50. Higher risk is 50 to 200. And then the highest risk is greater than 200. So all of these things are pieces of data that will be used by our board to make determinations about how and when we can return students to school. They did schedule a special board meeting for, and they're considering having that on October 5th. That date is not set. Really, we're going to be monitoring the dashboard to see if we get reductions. And if we do, then the board will have a meeting and discuss it in public to decide if it's possible for us to choose a date to bring some students back to school. I wanted to let you know that when and if that decision is made, it would be for our youngest students. So it might just be kindergarten or kindergarten first and second grades that would come back to begin with. As such, it's important for us to gather information about where parents are with bringing students back to school. So for families in those grades, you can expect to receive communications from the school in the next week or so, finding out more about you being able to return your student to in-person schooling and any other concerns or issues that might interfere with having your student return to school. So the final message that I'd like you to hear is to thank you all for all of the support that you've given to students and to our community. This pandemic has been easily the most stressful time in my education career, and I can't even imagine how stressful it must be for families to try and make it work to have students at home and to be able to help them to build new routines and to be able to participate in their education remotely. It is clearly not ideal. And the most important thing that I want you to hear is that we know that it's not ideal, and we really, really want our students back in the school building. It simply must be safe to do so. And so we're going to continue to monitor what's going on with the amount of disease activity, and anything that we can do to help support you, we want to. So please reach out if you need support, help, communications. Reach out initially to your teacher, and if you don't reach any resolution, then please reach out to the principal, and finally reach out to me if you still need assistance. We really, really do want this to work in the best way possible for all families. So thank you again. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great weekend.